Back to work on this 2020 Kawasaki ZX10. Went ahead and disconnected and removed what's left of the ignition and top triple right here. I have to remove these two bolts on the bottom that hold the ignition to this triple because I have a new upper triple coming, a new OEM one from Kawasaki, and these bolts need to come out. So I don't have a welder and you can't really get a Dremel in there to do anything with these, so I'm gonna take it to a friend who has a welder and hopefully he can weld some nuts onto these and kind of unscrew these bolts out. So that's the plan with the ignition. Let's try to get these bolts out so the ignition is ready for the new upper triple when it gets here. And we do have parts coming in the mail, pretty much everything we need. I ordered, got new headers coming in, new radiator coming in. I bought 2 new forks, even though I only needed one. I couldn't find a single right fork anywhere, so I just bought a set and got a new lower triple coming here as well. Whole steering stem, very expensive part. Apparently that's a weak point here on these Kawasaki's. It's kind of interesting. I've never seen those bend before, and it's a weak point for these bikes. So I'm gonna be ordering a new ram air here as well. That's pretty much it. Got the wheel rotor as well coming in, because I think we still got one good rotor. And once all these parts come in, this bike should be roadworthy, I believe. All right, guys, we already got packages showing up for the 2020 ZX10. Also, my friend was able to get the bolts out of the ignition, so I have the ignition free of the upper triple here. So when the new triple shows up, I'll be ready to install. That's gonna be about, I think it's on back order, so it's gonna be a couple more days for that. We are going to get into a couple of these packages today. This big one, that little one up top. We're gonna do a couple things on this bike. Can't do too much yet, we're still waiting on some more packages. Don't wanna get too far before we change out this radiator and that exhaust. But let's dig into these packages and see what we got. All right, so first thing we got here is a blank key. Come over here, look at the key we have. You see it's starting to bend and twist, so it only came with one key. I got a blank key. We're gonna take this, go get it cut to match this one so that we have 2 keys for the bike. That's step 1. Then we're gonna dig into this big box. You'll see what we got for it. And just like that, we got the blank cut up. We're gonna go ahead and try that in the ignition in a second, make sure that thing works. We're also gonna get into this box, but I wanted to talk about 2 things real quick before we get started. First thing is, calipers aren't hanging, just so you guys know, they're sitting on these rags. I know they were hanging at first, but I didn't have a choice because I didn't really know how I was gonna have the bike sitting up on the stand. So I have everything situated now, so those aren't hanging by their brake lines at all. And then the biggest thing is I'm not 100% sure this frame is straight, so that's my biggest concern. I know that the frames are kind of weird and it looks a little sunken in here versus here. And that was kind of my main concern when I originally saw it. So kind of, when we're putting this bike together, it's kind of like fingers crossing that the frame's even straight. So I mean, I was doing some research and I found out that frames can bend before they crack. I didn't really realize they can bend, but they can definitely bend. So the concern is that the steering stem is no longer straight, and it's hard to really tell with the radiator and the exhaust still on there because they are bent. So we are going to throw what's in this box on there. Maybe it'll kind of help us give us an idea. Let's go from there. Alright, so what we have here is a whole lower triple, 2 forks, an axle set right here. Came with the ABS line. Originally I was just looking for 1 fork. I could not find a single fork that matched the color way that this one is. It has the silver top and the white sticker on the side. It was impossible to find pretty much any forks at all for this bike, let alone the same colorway. So I got the same white sticker here, and these ones had the green top, which honestly I kind of like more. I know people have their opinions on I think there's red and there's green and there's the silver, but I really like those green tops actually. But either way, I mean, realistically they could be swapped out if that was that big of a deal because the tops aren't damaged. So I think, however, I'm gonna list both those forks for sale to try to recover some money for the project because these forks are quite expensive. You'll see when I do the price breakdown how much I paid, but this is probably gonna be one of the most expensive things I had to buy for the bike. And like I said, I just went with both forks and the lower triple kind of like as a set because this lower triple online, the only one I could find used was like 450 bucks, and to get this whole thing for the price I got, it was actually a pretty good deal. So we're going to throw this on here, see how it sits, and I'll be able to put it up on at least a fork stand to get it off all this, so at least it'll be more stable. So let's throw that on there. As you saw, the key works perfectly fine. I'm gonna test it in the ignition here in a minute, but the ignition, obviously, as you can tell, it's still not attached to the bike. I don't have it plugged in, so can't really test it in the ignition just yet, but we'll get to that. Let's get cracking. One big bonus with buying this whole complete setup like I did is it came with this axle right here, which I know is going to be straight, unlike this one, which appears straight, but I'm not 100% sure it is straight. And obviously the accident was pretty severe, so I'm going to be using this axle instead. So it's kind of a bonus. Let's throw it on there. All right, so you gotta go ahead and get the correct wrench and tighten this, and gotta check the routing to all these wires. I took pictures, but I'm not sure if all the routing is correct. I feel like that one might be a little bit different, but we're gonna double check on all that. don't have a tire to throw on there yet, don't care. Like I said, gotta get all the wiring routed the correct way. Next step would be, we gotta change this radiator and exhaust out, so we don't wanna go too far right here, but I'm gonna tighten this all down. That'll be it for now. We'll still be waiting for the radiator and the exhaust to come in the mail. All right, so we got that tightened down. I'm not gonna tighten anything else down until we get the upper triple and verify all the wiring, everything. You might have noticed I pulled the rear seat off and the rider seat off, as well as the little plastic piece here. I wanted to go ahead and check under the seat, make sure everything was kosher under there, and it's pretty dirty under here, so I'm gonna take the time to clean under here. Obviously I'm changing the plastics anyways, so I'm gonna clean that up. Probably gonna have to put the seat back on for the first test ride here before the plastics arrive, but that's no big deal. So in this package, got the license plate mount right here. It's gonna go on kind of like that. I'm gonna check my assortment of bolts here, see if I can't find a couple that'll match up. See if we can get this mounted up real quick. All right, so we got the license plate mounted up. Got all the hardware selected. Wasn't too hard to find. Got a lot of nice bolts right here from all the bikes I've worked on. While I was over here, I noticed chain probably gonna need replaced, but definitely gonna at least lube it up real quick. And the rear tire is really dirty, so, or the rim at least. So I wanna clean this rim up, lube this chain up a little bit. So let's do that. And then we have to wait for those other parts to arrive tomorrow. This rim all cleaned up, sprocket cleaned up a little bit, chains all lubed. That is the OEM chain that Kawasaki put on the bike. That's pretty crazy. I think the bike has 15,000 miles, so cool to see the OEM chain on there. I was cleaning this up a little bit more and I noticed there was this battery tender wired up in here, so I removed that, got that out of the way. That's cleaned up a little bit more. Coming along. So got a couple packages, but we can't really do anything until we get that tire in. It's supposed to be here tomorrow. A few other things are going to be here, so catch you tomorrow.